really great to hear so much chatter and everyone sort of getting to know each other, which is part of what this is about. So, it's about learning, but it's also about meeting people and developing relationships. So thank you all for coming and for sharing and being here tonight. For those of you who haven't been here before, don't know me, I'm Matt Glover, and I run Happy and Healthy Relationships. And I've been doing this meetup for about 2.5 years, and we have a meetup every month. And I do a talk every second month and get a guest speaker in every other month, just to mix it up a bit and get different topics, different aspects of relationships. So yeah, it's exciting to see such a big group of people. I really applaud you all for coming out, and rather than sitting at home and watching telly or whatever, it's coming along and sort of wanting to learn a bit more about relationships, because it is so important to have great relationships, whether it's your intimate relationship or just general relationships with friends and family. It really is what makes us complete, makes us whole and really fulfills us in our lives. So good on you all for coming, and I hope you all had a lovely Christmas and New Year and feeling refreshed and raring to go for 2019. I know I am. I'm super excited about this year. I think it's going to be a great year. So tonight we're talking about communication and how to really get great communication happening in your relationship. And as we all know, communication is the backbone of any relationship. And without good communication, it's very difficult to have a healthy and fulfilling relationship. So, by the way, do you want to share this? Yeah, okay, cool. It is a vital part of any good relationship, and it's not something that's necessarily easy. We think it should be, but it's not. It tends to be quite difficult, and it's not about whether you communicate, it's about how you communicate. There's plenty of couples out there who communicate a lot, and their relationship just spirals out of control. And there are other couples who don't communicate that much, and their relationship works. It's different for everyone. There's no sort of set rule for any particular couple, but there are certain elements of communication that really are pretty universal in order to get that great relationship, that healthy relationship, and make sure you're both working together and understanding each other's needs and wants and desires, and so that you can grow together rather than growing apart. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is, and I think this is really, really important, and it's the differences between male and female communication. Now, I think it would be remiss not to discuss this, because we are very different in the way we communicate. And of course, that's not everyone. We're all different. We all have certain degrees of masculinity and femininity, all that, but these are fairly common sort of ways that males and females communicate, and how they communicate differently, and how that can cause problems. We are attracted to our differences, and that's what provides the spark, but it can also really tear us apart if we don't understand what's happening. And I will be saying some generalizations, and with generalizations, they are generally true. And of course, they're not true for everyone, and some of you might listen and go, well, that doesn't really resonate with me. That's fine. You might be the complete opposite. That's fine too. But these are common issues within a relationship that I encounter, and I know a lot of people do encounter. It's that men are from Mars, women are from Venus sort of thing, where we do look at the world differently. So essentially, when boys grow up, boys have a way of communicating with other boys, which generally involves things like witty put-downs, smart-ass comments, general banter, and they bounce off each other. It's not really deep conversation, and this is a way to prepare themselves for life as an adult, where they're going to have to endure and deal with criticism in their life, in their careers, whatever it is, in order to be successful. Also, being the gender that is generally the one that initiates romantic and sexual initiatives or advances, they need to be able to handle that rejection that generally comes with that. So boys have a way of communicating that is quite boisterous and verbose, and it's not a really deep and understanding way of communicating. And generally, boys take this same way of communicating into their adult lives, and particularly with their mates, will continue with that same type of communication. Now, I don't know if any of you play golf, but I play a lot of golf. I love my golf, and sometimes I play social golf with a group of ladies, and sometimes I play with a group of men. And the difference in the communication is profound. In most cases, there are, of course, occasions where it's not that way. But what you find is, when I play with a group of ladies, they tend to talk a lot. They find out what's happening in each other's lives. They find out what their kids are doing, what their family's doing, what's happening in their work, what their relationships are. They have this general sort of chit-chat where they find, by the end of the round, they know what's happening in everyone's lives. And they're very supportive. If one of them hits a really bad shot, they'll sort of say, "Oh, that's okay, we all do it." And they tend to be very supportive. Whereas you play a social round with a bunch of blokes, and there might be a quick like, "Oh yeah, how the kids going?" "Yeah, good, good." Okay, and then they start the banter, and there'll be put downs, they'll be trying to put them off their shots, or put them off their game, inappropriate jokes, all that sort of stuff. It'll be light-hearted and fun, but it'll be completely different to how the women generally communicate in that case. And if somebody hits a really bad shot, they will generally roll around on the ground laughing, and they will remind them of it throughout the whole round. And then they'll go into the clubhouse and they'll tell everyone about it in the clubhouse. It's just a different way of communicating. The problem is, this way of communicating really doesn't work too well with females, especially in a relationship. Men tend to think that that's the way that you communicate, and that will work no matter what the environment, and unfortunately it really doesn't. Girls, on the other hand, grow up talking about how they feel about things, understanding how it affects other people, how it affects the world around them. They form deeper connections, and they usually feel it quite deeply when those connections are broken. So, girls are a lot different in that way, the way that they are brought up. And this was exemplified just recently. I was watching one of the Big Bash League cricket games, and I noticed they showed a replay of one of the fielders trying to stop the form, and he dived and landed quite heavily, and he just got his hand to it, but he didn't stop it. And in the crowd, you see there were 3 boys and a girl, all about the same age, around sort of 8 to 10, that sort of age. And the boys were shouting and laughing and carrying on, because all they cared about was that the ball went for 4, and that was the result that they wanted. The girl was in the middle of them, and she was just staring at the fielder with her sort of mouth open, with a concerned look on her face. And she was worried because he'd sort of fallen over and hadn't got back up, and she was just so worried about him. And it just brought home to me just how, despite the fact that we are evolving, the differences between girls and boys and men and women are still quite obvious and quite clear. And women are naturally more empathetic. They're more sympathetic. That's just how they are. Physiologically, we are built that way. Women have more access to oxytocin. If you know what oxytocin is, but it's often referred to as the cuddle hormone, and it's what bonds us together. And men get a boost of oxytocin when they first start a relationship, so it helps us to bond. Women have greater amounts of that than men do. Also, men have greater amounts of testosterone, and testosterone has been shown to reduce empathy. So women naturally do have a greater amount of empathy than men. But when it comes to conflict, that completely changes. And that empathy and sympathy goes out the window. And it changes. And women are no more sympathetic than women. Women are no more sympathetic than men when it comes to conflict. And anyone who works in a divorce court will tell you that that's the case. It also applies in competitive environments where women often struggle to separate the competition from their life outside the competition. If you watch the tennis, the Australian Open, and you have a look at how they react when they come to the net after the match, and this is a generalisation, it's not all the time, but I watch this a lot and I really find human interaction fascinating. And what you'll find is generally the men, they'll come up and they'll shake hands, they'll give a really warm handshake, they'll pat each other on the back or on the stomach, have a couple of words, say good luck or whatever, and then go, so once it's over, they sort of are able to separate. Whereas the women, more often than not, it's like, well, I'll touch you because I have to, but that's it, And I've noticed this a lot. And I know in the tennis world, I used to play a lot of tennis, and I used to be quite involved in the tennis area. There is not much friendship within the tennis community in the female area, whereas the men tend to develop quite a lot of friendships. And I know personally, a lot of the females in the tennis profession are very jealous of the males, and are frustrated by the fact that the women find it very difficult to sort of separate the competition from outside of that competition, whereas men are much more able to compartmentalise it and separate it. Men have a very simple way of dealing with conflict, and that's generally fight or flight. So men, in that case, when conflict arises, they will generally either fight, often physically, or they will withdraw, disappear. And this is fine in their male friendships. Men will often come to blows with their mates. It's not unusual. And then bang, it's over, it's done, finished, and they move on. And this was happened. This was in the news a few years ago. And I just realised when I was writing this, all my examples here are all sport. So you can tell I'm a sport fan. But this was, I think, probably front page of the newspaper a few years ago. There was 2 Western Bulldogs football players that were in a pub. They're best mates, and they were having a beer, and they had a disagreement or something, and it got quite heated. And all of a sudden, they just ended up having a bit of a punch on. And they had this punch on. It was like, okay, it's done. They went back and just started having a beer again. But of course, it was somebody, people in the past saw it, so it became a big story, fallout Bulldogs mates. And they were like, nothing happened, we just had a bit of a scuffle, bang, it was over, done, we're best mates. And I know a lot of women go, how can you do that? How can you do that? But a lot of men can. A lot of men can just go, bang, that's it. We just finish with it, done with it, move on. But women tend to want to work through it, and until they're confident that everything has been settled. And it's, excuse me while I grab a drink. You'd think the way men are, and the way as they're we're portrayed in the media and all that, that men would be the dominant force in the home. And rightly we think that because we see all this domestic violence on the news. And unfortunately, with the freeze and flee mentality of men, most men do choose, fight or flight. Freeze and flee is coming up later. Fight or flight. Most men choose the flight as the best option, but some men, in order to feel in control, do choose the fight, which is not obviously a good option. And with women, 85% of all argument-provoking communication is generally initiated by the woman, and the woman is much more likely to instigate and escalate any conflict. And they're just trying to connect. But it's been shown that men are actually more intimidated by angry women than women are by angry men. And this is true, and this has been scientifically studied. And men also get overwhelmed more quickly, they get flooded more quickly, and they take longer to recover. So, women are trying to reach out and connect and trying to improve the relationship, but men tend to feel like they're being controlled. And men don't handle feeling like they're being controlled very well, generally. Men don't react well to criticism. They often see it as contempt or disrespect. And so men will generally withdraw, because that's for them the best way of making sure that the conflict doesn't escalate. It's not that they're deliberately doing anything to hurt or to make things worse. They're actually thinking, well, if I say something now, it's just going to make it worse. And nothing I say is working here, so it's best that I just move on, just cut it and just let's finish it there, done. And for a man, that's a reasonable way of dealing with it. But for a woman, she often sees that silence as hostility. And it's very, very frustrating for a woman to have that, because a woman has generally a real need to talk. And again, this is not everyone, but this is generally the case. A woman wants to talk. If there's an issue, she feels a need to work through it. She can't just say, oh, okay, let's just forget about it and move on. So, she gets very frustrated with the man stonewalling. But, she just wants somebody to listen to her. It's so important for a woman to have someone who will just listen and understand and help work through whatever issue it is. The problem is, men are not good listeners, generally. And not all women are good listeners either. We can all improve our listening skills, there's no doubt about it. But women are naturally better listeners. Even physiologically, women have more neurons in the brain connected to their hearing centres than men do. So women actually have better hearing. And I'm sure if any of you have grandparents or had grandparents, chances are the one that you had to scream at over the table was your grandfather. Men don't have as good hearing, and we need to improve. We need to learn how to listen properly. And it's not something that comes naturally to most men. The thing is too, though, a man, no matter how good his listening skills are, He won't listen if he's feeling disrespected. And this is a problem that comes up a lot. A man is not going to want to engage in a discussion if he feels disrespected. So, for the ladies out there, if you're having trouble with your communication, you might want to ask yourself, am I doing anything or saying anything that might be coming across as disrespectful? And it may not seem that way to you, but it may well seem that way to your partner. So, ask yourself, is there a way that I can communicate better? Or is there a way that I can show my partner that I do respect him in whatever way? Because that will allow you to get that communication line open and at least offer that opportunity. Because if you don't do that, then you've got no hope of actually working through the issues. Another thing that men do struggle with is feelings, expressing their feelings and listening to other people's feelings. Again, it's not a natural thing. Men are told as they're growing up that it's dangerous to be vulnerable. That if you show that you are expressing that you are being disrespected, then that's not healthy, that's not the right thing to do. Can you imagine if a man comes to his mates and says, oh, I'm feeling disrespected by my wife, and she's taken charge and I don't know what to do. What are most blokes going to say? They're going to say something like, oh, take your skirt off and put some pants on, something completely inappropriate. But that's the way that often men will communicate. Suck it up, big boy, that sort of stuff. And just in their mind, they're providing great advice. Harden up, toughen up, grow a pair, and take charge. Show her who's boss. This is the way a lot of men communicate, and it's not healthy. It's not helping the situation. Is that guy going to do that again? No chance. So, men do need to learn how to express themselves and how to accept, especially, because men become successful by suppressing their feelings, not by expressing them. In most areas of their lives, expressing feelings doesn't help them. So they tend to bring that same way of dealing with things into their relationships. And, it doesn't work. If you think that you can use the same techniques that you use, in the office or on the building site, wherever it might be, and bring those home and expect that to work in your intimate relationship, you're going to find a lot of problems. And I work with a lot of couples where the man is very successful in all areas of his life, but can't get his relationships working. And you have to teach him how to actually change your behaviour from the workplace into the home. And a lot of men struggle with that. So, women as well do sometimes struggle with men being too vulnerable. We all say, oh, it's nice that a man expresses his feelings. But there is a fine line. Women still instinctively want their man to be strong, strong and protective. And, they're normally quite happy for them to show some vulnerability, that's fine. But if there's too much, all of a sudden it's like, I'm not sure about this, I don't know if I want this, I need someone who's got that strength. So you need to be able to still show the strength, have a balance between showing your strength and and be protective and all that sort of stuff, and also find the time to show your vulnerable side. But even more important is men really need to listen to women's feelings, accept women's feelings don't dismiss them. This is a problem that many men have. Men are brilliant at dismissing women's feelings. You know, we do it all the time. We don't mean to, but all the time. You know, men inadvertently will do it. You know, things like, you know, if their partner is telling them about some problem she's having at work, you know, a man's way of dealing with it will be something like, oh, you know, just ignore them. You know, you do a great job. You know, you look after your staff. You know, you're really good at what you do. You know, if they have a problem, just forget about it. Just let them be. It's their problem, not yours. And you know, the guy will go, yeah, I've solved that. You know, I've done really well here. I've solved the problem, and I've told her how good she is. 2 wins. But the woman's going, oh, now I feel even worse. Because you've invalidated her feelings. You know, you've just told her that her feelings aren't valid. You shouldn't have that feeling, you should have this feeling. And, you know, a woman doesn't want to be told that. The woman wants you to sit and listen and say, I understand how you feel. You know, I understand that that must feel really bad to be in that situation. You know, you're right to feel that way. And she doesn't want you to solve her problem. She just wants to be able to talk to you about it. But men, you know, the problem with men is listen, we are programmed to analyse, to solve the problem, to fix whatever it is. You know, that's how our brains generally work. So our default mechanism is just to go straight to go, oh, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? And women get very frustrated with that, generally. You know, they just want someone to talk to, someone to feel that they're supported by, and not someone to fix their problem. And yeah, there might come a time where you just might say, oh, what do you think I should do? Okay, then you can go into problem solving mode. But before then, just listen. Just be supportive, ask questions, you know, go a bit deeper into how she's feeling, and she will love you for it. And one other thing about the difference in communication with men and women is the physical way we communicate quite often. You know, men sort of communicate by sharing experiences, whereas women share experiences by talking about them, you know, infusing them with emotion and feeling, that sort of thing. But you know, men don't tend to do that. And you know, if you have 2 women who say, oh, let's go down to the pub for a drink, now they will generally go down to the pub for a drink. They will find a table where they're sitting opposite each other, face to face, eye to eye, and they will just sit there and talk. Men, on the other hand, you know, will generally go, let's go down to the pub together. There's sport on the TV, or there's a band playing, or maybe let's just check out the talent in the pub. And they'll generally go there and they will do what's called shoulder-to-shoulder communication, which is where they'll sit side by side and they'll have another experience that they will be enjoying at the same time. So, you know, generally they'll sit down and they'll watch some sport on the TV, or they'll watch a band, something, and they'll talk, you know, sometimes a lot, sometimes not so much, but they don't feel a need generally to talk a lot. You know, they will just survey what's happening around them, watch the game, whatever it is, and they'll talk and they'll glance at each other, you know, every now and again, but they're fine with that. Women find that often quite disconcerting. They don't feel connected when that's happening. You know, women often need that direct face-to-face contact to feel really connected. There was actually an experiment done with this a few years back where they had couples of women and men, and they put them into a room. They said they had 2 chairs side by side, and they said, you know, go into the room and sit down and you know, chat if you want. Didn't say that there was anything else, just so the women invariably went in the room, turned the chairs around face to face, and just started talking. The men would invariably go in and just sit where the chairs were, and maybe have a bit of chat in there and just glance at each other occasionally, and that was fine. It's just a different way of communicating. And sometimes men can get overwhelmed with feeling the need to communicate all the time. It can be too much for them. Sometimes they just need their space. So, if you are having trouble with your communication, perhaps try when your man does go off and do his own thing, just try just going there and sitting there. Maybe read a book or something and just sit there, don't talk. Your partner might go, what the hell are you doing? But, just say, I'm just happy being here with you. Because men love a woman to be with them. They do. Men love a woman by their side. But sometimes that pressure of having to talk all the time can be a bit too much. So by doing that, you might find that your partner will start to just naturally open up and be happy talking because it's sort of more on his terms. So, see, there are a lot of differences in the way men and women communicate, and sometimes I think it's no surprise that we do struggle a lot in relationships, and sometimes I think it's almost a miracle that we actually sometimes do manage to get it right. But the truth is, it's a battle for most people in long-term relationships. But there are ways that you can work through it if you're prepared to. If you have the ability to say, we're going to try something different, we're going to learn how to communicate in a balanced way so that it meets both of our needs. So, we'll talk now about conflict and how to deal with conflict. And conflict is an important part of a relationship. A relationship without conflict is generally not a good relationship. There's plenty of people at the divorce courts who had relationships where we never fought at all. And I'll put my hand up and say I was one of those. I was married for 14 years and we never argued. And 1 minute, all of a sudden it was over. And it's like, for me, it's like not arguing meant it was a good relationship. For her, no, because she wasn't getting the connection that she needed. So, conflict is important. It shows how much we care, and it allows us to, bring some emotion into the relationship, and it provides that spark. It's our differences that provide the spark. So having those differences is actually really important, and it's important to be able to express them, but it's also important to know how to stop it when it gets out of control. So, first thing I want to just go through briefly is the 3 basic types of conflict. Okay, so 3 types of conflict. These were coined by Dr. Sue Johnson, and she's got some great books if anyone is interested in reading some good relationship books. So the first type is find the bad guy. This could also be termed, it's not me, it's you. Now this is basically where you just have the back and forth, arguing, blaming, sort of getting out of control kind of arguments, where you just feel like you just can't sort of correlate your opinions, your needs, whatever. So you end up, in yelling matches, that sort of thing. Now this is actually the healthiest of the 3 types of conflict. Only because, when you're doing that, you're still connected and you're still showing that you actually care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't bother. You'd give up. So, you know, if you're finding yourself in this sort of situation, if it's not too often, it's fine. You know, we all do it. It's natural in a relationship that you are going to butt heads at times. But it does become a problem when it becomes your, you know, most common way of dealing with things. Because clearly you're not getting any resolve. And what will happen is it will generally develop into the next type of conflict, which is protest conflict. So this is where eventually one partner starts to withdraw. Just saying, this is all too hard, I can't deal with this anymore, you know, nothing I do is right, so it's just easier and better just to walk away. And in most cases, it is the man who will withdraw. It's just the way we are made, and you know, certainly find that with most of my clients. You know, the woman is the one who generally is trying to connect, and as I said before, you know, she often tries to connect with criticism, and she's not doing it to hurt the partner. She's doing it to try to improve the relationship and you know, to get that connection. But you know, men struggle with it, so men will often detach and walk away. It's been shown that this, if you have this type of conflict within the first 3 years of your marriage, then you have an over 90% chance that you're going to be divorced within 10 years. So, really important that if you do find yourself, you know, having that type of conflict, you see that pattern developing, that you really get some help for it. Because it's not going to fix itself. Generally, once it gets to that stage, you know, you need someone to be able to help you work through that and understand why that's happening. But what happens if you don't get help with that? Then you go to the next one, which is freeze and flee. Freeze and flee is basically where the partner who was pursuing, trying to connect, eventually gives up as well and says, well, no, clearly this isn't working. I'm tired of it, I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated, I give up. And so you've got two people who are just not connected at all anymore. You know, you're really just housemates. And once it gets to that stage, really it's just a matter of time before the relationship ends. And you know, you can get it back from there, but it's very difficult, and you both have to make that decision that you're going to leave the past behind and start afresh and work through it together. But it's hard because there's so much crap that you've got to deal with, and you know, you've got to get that connection back, and that can be, you know, quite tricky. So, you know, if any of those are pervasive in your relationship, you really need to look at it and get some help. Otherwise, it's not going to end well. So next thing is the elements within those areas of conflict. And we call them 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, has anyone here heard of John Gottman? John Gottman, yeah. John is renowned as probably the foremost couples therapist in the world, and he's done a lot of scientific studies on couples, and he coined these. You know, it's quite dramatic for Horsemen of the Apocalypse, but it's quite appropriate as well, because you know, these things do really cause major problems in a relationship. So the first one is criticism. Now, a bit like the find the bad guy, criticism on its own isn't really a big deal. You know, we all criticise at times. You know, it's not that big a deal to have some criticism in your relationship. You know, we naturally will criticise. And criticism is, you know, just when you're criticising the action, you know, like you never unpack the dishwasher, or, you know, why can't you take the bins out when I ask you to? You know, that's criticism. And that's okay, you know, if it's occasional, it doesn't generally do much damage. But if it becomes pervasive, if you're finding criticism is one of the major ways that you communicate, then it becomes a problem. And then you need to look at the patterns that you're getting into and find a different way of communicating. The second one is contempt. Now this is the most destructive of the four. Contempt is sort of an extension of criticism. So contempt is where you take the criticism and you make it personal. So instead of saying, oh, you know, why don't you ever take the bins out? You know, you say things like, you know, why don't you ever take the bins out, you lazy bastard? You know, it's an attack on the character of your partner. And that is really dangerous because nobody wants to be in a relationship where their character is being attacked. You know, we go into a relationship to be supported, and you know, some of us, contempt is really, really destructive. And you know, if you feel contempt coming into your relationship at all, you need to stop it. And you know, if you do fly off the handle and say something you need to apologise immediately, because that will really hurt. And that will lead to a quick end to the relationship if that continues. And again, you know, that may be something, you know, if that's coming into your relationship, you might need to work through with someone to help fix. The third one is defensiveness. Now, this is closely related to criticism because our natural reaction to criticism is defensiveness. You know, we want to sort of protect ourselves, and we want to, you know, in our point of view. So instead of really listening to the criticism and trying to understand what's behind it, we come back with our own retort. And you know, often that retort is blaming our partner. And we're not really listening. We're not really getting the benefit of what that criticism could provide us. So, you know, it's important to look at your reaction to criticism. Say, am I really listening, or am I, you know, listening to my own agenda? Because, you know, we naturally do. It's the way we naturally will react when we feel like somebody's attacking us. So, you know, defensiveness is similar to criticism in that it's not, you know, really destructive unless it becomes pervasive, and usually the two come together. And the fourth one is stonewalling, which we touched on just before. Stonewalling is where you basically detach from the communication. You just say, it's all too hard, I'm going to just leave the room or just ignore you. And you know, that is really dangerous as well, because you're not just turning your back on the conversation, you're turning your back on the whole relationship by doing that. And you know, you'll quickly lose that connection if that happens too often. So these are the four things that are really important to look for in your relationship, in your communication. And you know, if they are a part of it, you know, it's important to do something about it. If you can work through it yourselves, fantastic. But you know, most couples struggle to work through these things themselves. So it can be really important to get somebody to help you. Okay, so how do we communicate better? How do we communicate in a way that we can both feel heard, understood, respected, and all that? What I do with my clients is I work through them with a process called active listening. It's a really simple process. It's very, very simple, but also very difficult. Particularly if you're a couple that has had a lot of conflict, because it's a completely different way of doing things. It's not hard, but it's not easy. Now, the first starting point of active listening is developing a repair attempt. A repair attempt is a word or a phrase or some sort of signal that says, okay, we're going to stop there, this is getting out of control. So something that the two of you have to agree on beforehand. You have to agree that no matter who instigates it, that's it. You stop there and you agree on a time to come back and talk about it, and possibly using the active listening technique. Because this is where the problems happen. People get out of control in arguments. Once you get out of control, you can't then actually find a solution. Because we're all focused on our own agenda. We're not in that situation. Our emotions are high. We're not listening to our partner. We're not finding out the feelings behind what they're saying. All we're thinking about is what's going on in our own ear. We're listening to ourselves. And we're saying, what am I going to say next? How am I going to rebut this? And it's just not an effective way of getting any resolution. So having a process where you can agree to stop, walk away, and come back. It could be in 20 minutes, it could be the following morning, but sometime within the next day or so. Make sure that you come back and that you deal with it. So the way I get my clients to deal with it is an active listening process. So what we do is get one person to be the speaker and one person to be the listener. Now the speaker then talks about the issue and how they feel about it, just in short blocks of dialogue. Short enough that it's easy for the partner to repeat it back. And so what I do is use I statements instead of you statements. And this is really important. So it's all about how you feel. So instead of saying, you make me feel angry or you make me this, you say, I feel upset when this happens. It takes the blame out. It's a much softer way of approaching it. As soon as you blame someone, they're not going to listen. So you need to make it about yourself, about your feelings, because they're your feelings and you can't really argue with someone's feelings, whether you agree with them or not. They're your feelings. So using I statements, saying how you feel about the issue. Making sure that you're eye to eye, that you're really connected when you're doing it. And really focusing on making sure that your tone of voice and body language are very neutral. There's no point repeating back what somebody says and saying, well, yeah, you do that, in that sort of manner. It's not going to come across well. This is about being curious and understanding more about your partner. So the listener will repeat back as close to exactly as they can what the speaker just said. No interpretation, nothing, just repeat it back. And this is tricky. It's tricky in two ways. One is it can be very tricky to keep it down to a small block of dialogue. When we're used to arguing a lot, we just ramble, we just want to get everything out before our partner jumps in. So to actually just have short blocks and then stop can be quite challenging for some people. The other thing that is quite challenging is not jumping in and having your say and going, no, that's bullshit, which we're all tempted to do, but that's the whole point of this. And it's a really powerful process, but it can be really uncomfortable, if you're not used to it. And I find when I work with couples, this is the biggest hurdle. If I can get them to do the active listening, then I know from then on we can solve pretty much anything. But there's often a lot of resistance to it. Sometimes I'll do it once and go, oh, it was a bit weird, didn't feel comfortable, so we sort of stopped doing it. I'm actually working with a couple at the moment where, I do this early on in the program, and I explained how to do it, and they went off, and they came back the next session, and I could tell straight away that things weren't good. And I said, how's it going? We're out of all this crap. And I said, oh, okay, so how did you go with the active listening? We sort of tried it the first day. I didn't think that stuff really works. We sort of tried to maybe incorporate a little bit of it into our, our communication, but I just don't think that stuff's going to work. I said, okay, so how did it work for you doing it how you did it? Well, not very well. I said, well, if you want some change, you're going to have to do something different. And, I sort of put the Japanese sword in and twisted it a little bit and said, if you're going to spend your money and work with me, you better do what I tell you to do, otherwise you're just wasting your money. And I don't want to be working with you for weeks and weeks and weeks and be getting this same result. So they agreed, came back the next session, and I could tell straight away the whole atmosphere in the room was just so different. They were smiling. I said, oh, how are you going? Oh, really good. Did you do that? He said, yeah, we did. So actually, it seems to have helped. I said, wow, fancy that. It's getting out of your comfort zone, doing something a bit different. If you're finding you're in a pattern of behaviour that's just leading you down the wrong path, you need to change something. You need to look at things a little bit differently and try a different way of communicating. And doing it that way is not how you're going to necessarily do it for the rest of your lives. But if you practice it enough, all of a sudden it becomes a natural way of communicating, and you don't have to do it, you don't have to sit down and do a formal process. You'll start to actually communicate that way in a much more supportive, understanding way, just naturally. But first you've got to get out of your comfort zone and do it. Now, probably got enough time if everyone's happy to just do a little demo. If I'm going to do a demo, I need a volunteer. Would you like to volunteer? Okay. Yeah, so you want to volunteer?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, cool. So, what's your name? Okay, thank you. I'll grab a couple of seats. This might be very... This will just be a very quick demo. And there's no right or wrong here, so all I need you to do is just repeat back what I say. So just be small blocks and just repeat back as close to exact as you can. Okay? So Okay, so just last night we had an argument over you coming home late. Okay, so last night I was angry because you went out and you didn't tell me where you were, and I was worried, and that's why I yelled at you.
Okay, so what you're telling me that because I was late, you got angry.
Yeah, close. And this is where it's great, because it shows you how difficult it is, even with a small block of dialogue, how difficult it is to remember everything. Now, can you imagine extrapolating this into a full-blown argument with this, how much you're taking in?
And made you worried.
Yeah, very good. And you didn't tell me where you were.
No, I didn't tell you.
Yeah. This is good. So there's no right or wrong. It's actually good if you get it wrong, because it gives us a chance to show how it can be actually quite challenging and quite difficult. Okay, so then I say yes, that's right. So I'm happy now that that I've been heard and understood. So then I go a bit deeper and say, I feel like sometimes you have more fun with your friends than you do with me.
So you feel sometimes I have more fun with my friends than what I do with you, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, sometimes I feel very neglected, and that you don't really need me.
So you feel neglected and I don't really need you.
Yeah. And so I feel scared that if you don't need me, that one day you may not walk back in that door.
I'm actually starting to cry now. Yeah, I feel scared that, if I don't need you, then, we may wake up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exact, but it's close enough. And I say, yeah, that's right. So you can see there how, it's gone from just like I'm angry at you for, not telling me where you were, and, in the conflict the night before, that's about as the level that you get to. But by doing this, it gives you a chance to actually access some deeper feelings. And, this is really powerful, particularly for men. And I find quite often, men will come back and say, yeah, we did the process and I actually didn't realise I had these feelings, but if you do it properly and you really sort of dig deeper, things will come up that you may not even know were there. And so all of a sudden it's gone from, I was angry at you and yelled at you to, I'm scared of losing you. That's a big jump. That's really quite significant. And all of a sudden now you have an opportunity to say, okay, well, let's work through this. So do you want to be game and do you want to be the speaker, or do you want to respond? Up to you.
I feel that when you go out with all your mates, I feel that perhaps, you may be interested in another girl. I don't know. And I feel scared that,
Okay. That's probably just one point at a time.
Oh, okay.
Because if you start getting to, I'm already starting to go, too much.
Okay,
overload.
I'm only making this up, so no.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So you, Matt,
when you go out with your mates, I really feel scared. Because I'm scared I'm going to lose you if you enjoy going out so much.
Okay, so when I go with my mates, you feel scared that you're going to lose me because I'm enjoying myself so much.
Yes. And when you go out, I am actually so much in my brain thinking, what actually doing, and I feel anxious. Yeah.
Okay, so in your brain you're wondering what I'm doing and it makes you feel anxious.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering how we can sort this out without taking the freedom away. And I get my feelings, you know, validated and feel relaxed about the whole thing.
Okay. So you're wondering how we can sort this out without me having my fun taken away, and how you can validate your feelings. So that was quite a bit. I was struggling a bit to remember all of that.
So I don't feel I can feel more relaxed about you going out, and I don't have to have any concerns.
So that you can feel more relaxed about me going out and you don't have any concerns. All right, cool, very good. You know, this is a real good example of just how difficult it is, you know, to just be able to recite back. You know, as soon as she started going on to the second point, I started to lose it. You know, and we all do. Some of us are better than others at retaining things, but most people will go, look, I can't remember what you said, or you know, just remember a little bit of it. But you know, if you do it properly, it is a really powerful process. You know, it really does help you to connect, help you to feel understood. You know, I do certainly get a lot of women who do this and come back and they say, oh, you know, it's the first time in years that I've actually felt listened to. You know, that I haven't, when I've had something to say, that I haven't been jumped over the top of, or you know, or just walked off from. So, you know, it is something that, you know, if you can incorporate into your relationship, it's really powerful. So, I'd like you all to thank Roberta. Okay, so, you know, this is obviously something that is not, you know, necessarily practical for everyone, but, you know, if you can incorporate some of that into your communication, it's going to be hugely valuable. And what I want to sort of finish up on is how to give and receive criticism. So this is, you know, a little bit incorporated into the active listening, but you know, this is just a more general thing, because how we deal with criticism is so important as to, you know, the health of your relationship. If you can give and receive criticism in a way that it's heard, listened to and respected, then chances are you're going to have a great relationship. So let's turn this around. I have 8 rules for giving and receiving criticism. Now, I might just quickly grab a drink. Okay, so the rules for giving criticism. We're all pretty good at it, let's face it. Now, we don't need a lot of practice, but there are ways that you can give it where it's actually more likely to be received and understood. So the first thing is plan a time to give your criticism. Generally, we give criticism at the worst possible time, when we're emotional, when there's a stressful event happening, and of course, it doesn't get well received. You know, it doesn't get really heard. You know, the feelings behind it don't get revealed. So, you know, if you are feeling critical, it's best to find a time when you're in a better state that you can sit down and discuss it. And you know, it can be a good idea to have a specific time of the week or something where you say, okay, you know, Sunday afternoon, where we spend half an hour just chatting about anything that we might need to work on. You can do that, or you can make it a bit more ad hoc. But choosing your time is really important. Second, don't complain too often. As I said before, with criticism, if it becomes pervasive, then it's a real problem. If you're criticising all the time, your partner's just going to shut down. They're not going to listen. They don't want to. They don't want to hear this over and over again. So, if you have things, maybe write them down. Pick out what is the most important one. Often if you can work through the most important one, the other ones might disappear. Or if you write them down, say during the week, and then look at them at the weekend, you might sort of say, oh well, that one's really not an issue anymore anyway. It was just a bit, carried away at the time. We don't really need to deal with that. So, make sure that when you do complain, it's about something important, and the partner is going to actually be receptive to it. 3, tone of voice, physiology. Really important. It doesn't matter what you say. If you say it in a tone of voice that is disrespectful, condescending, or whatever it is, it's not going to be well received. And you're really not going to get a result from it. If somebody feels disrespected, they're not going to want to listen to what you have to say. So, really watch your tone of voice, and also your physiology. Watch what you're doing with your hands, your feet, your mouth, even, if you're really leaning in and being aggressive, you're not going to get a good result from that. So make sure your physiology, your tone of voice are neutral and soft and supportive, and you're much more likely to get your partner to actually listen to you. So share at least 4 positives. Now this can be difficult, but at least a couple when you are giving some criticism, making a complaint. We are much more likely to be open to listening to our partner if we first feel respected or valued, or whatever. So what I sometimes refer to it as is a feedback sandwich. So if you have something that you need to get off your chest, first find something positive to say. Just say, look, I really appreciate that why you do this, and it really works well in this way. But I think we could do it better in this respect, because when you do it this way, I feel you're not really respecting my values. Something like that. And then at the end, once you do it, then you say, but I really appreciate that you listened to me. Thank you for that. I really appreciate the support that you give me. Something like that. And that then allows the partner to actually open themselves up to that criticism and not feel it's an attack on them. Number 5, identify your partner's best intent dilemma. And this sort of goes to the previous point. That when your partner's doing something that annoys you, try to put yourself in their shoes. Try to see from their point of view. Understand what is their intent. Why are they doing this? What possible reason could they have? And who knows what it might be. I mean, it may be related to their past. As a child, or something happened to them as a child. You might remember something back then, or you could ask that. And what is their dilemma? Why are they feeling the need to act the way they are? And if you can express that to your partner, then they're going to feel understood, and then they're going to want to understand you. So that's really important. And never criticise after criticism. So if your partner criticises you, listen, but don't then criticise back, because they're not going to feel like that they've been really listened to and heard and respected, and it just then generally will often degenerate back into that criticism defensiveness pattern. So if you do have a criticism, wait for another time to bring it up. Ask your partner to just listen. And this is one that, you know, it's not easy to do. It's probably for couples who are maybe a bit more advanced who can do that. You know, especially in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult. So I wouldn't recommend, you know, when your emotions are high to say, hey, I want you to just listen. You know, it's better to do that when you're both in a better frame of mind. You sit down and somebody say, look, I have something I want to talk to you about. Could you please just listen, and then then you say. And that's sort of the active listening kind of thing, you know, but not as structured. And don't cross-examine. So when you're criticising, don't ask questions of your partner. Don't ask, you know, why do you do that? You know, that sort of thing. Because they're instantly just going to go into defensive mode, and they're all of a sudden they're not going to be listening to you. They're just going to be thinking of their own agenda, and it will then escalate into conflict again. So, you know, make sure you make it about yourself. Don't make it about your partner, and keep laying out of it. Now, receiving. So this is interesting because, you know, in therapy and that, we tend to do a lot of teaching people how to give criticism, how to soften it, and all that sort of stuff. But we rarely teach people how to receive criticism. And I think that this is the biggest key to really having a successful relationship. Not only a successful relationship, but a successful life. You know, learning how to handle criticism, how to listen to it, how to assess it and make judgments, you know, is an incredible skill to have. You know, most of the most successful people in the world, you know, over time, you know, Einstein, these sort of guys, you know, they had to work through a lot of criticism, and they had to overcome it. And, you know, and some of that criticism can be really, really valuable. But if you're not open to receiving it, then you lose that possibility of gaining some value. So my first and probably most important key to receiving criticism is to consider it a growth opportunity. You know, very difficult to do when you're having an argument, but you know, if you can consider that anytime you're getting criticism, that this is an opportunity for you to learn, for you to get better, and for your relationship to develop, then you're going to be much better off. You know, you're going to actually put yourself in a position where you're open to listening and hearing, and perhaps to find a solution, find a better way. Number two is take a cinematic approach. So this is where you kind of detach yourself a little bit from the conversation. It's not physically detaching. It's about looking at it as though you're in a movie, as though you're a character in a movie. And so you're kind of taking your ego out of it. You're allowing yourself to be impartial. So you're looking at it as though that you are part of a movie scene, and that you are a character in that movie. Now again, this is not an easy thing to do, and you're not going to do it in the heat of a battle. But it's something that you can practice, you know, in those times where you are in a good frame of mind and you are receptive to actually hearing the criticism. 3, keep energy on your partner's story. So this is about making sure that you're fully invested, and that you look at the criticism or the issue as a story, and you know, you really give your full attention to your partner. And part of that is supportive eye contact, and making sure that you are fully connected, that you are totally present. And this is something that, you know, I think most of the women in the room will probably understand, and men maybe not so much. The concept of being present, you know, it's something that men often struggle with, you know, because we do communicate differently. You know, we're having this side by side, shoulder by shoulder, you know, type of communication. but women generally don't feel connected with that. So, it's important that you do keep eye contact. And actually, anyone here sort of follow Tony Robbins or seen any Tony Robbins stuff? There's some really good videos of him working with couples. It can be quite funny. And one of the things, he'll get the couple on stage and he'll get them to, the woman to express her issue or feelings, and he will say, now to the man, I want you to be fully present the whole time. And then he'll get another woman up on stage to stand next to them. He said, I want you to slap him in the face as soon as he's not present. And most men will not see it. There are some very, intuitive men who will, but most men won't. But the women, they're onto it. And seriously, this guy will be looking at his wife, and she'll start saying something, and she'll go, whack, 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 and he'll go, what? It just doesn't get, that it's not just about, the eye contact and that. It's about being fully invested, fully focused, and not having your mind thinking about other things. And women will generally pick up on that if you are focused on something else when you're talking to them. So, supportive eye contact and keeping your energy on the part story, really, really important. Verbal support. Verbal support, again, is hugely important because there is listening and there is hearing. We all hear things, but not many of us truly listen. And part of listening is asking questions. A really good listener will ask questions, and it shows that you're actually listening, and then it allows you to find out more about what your partner has to say. So, it can be anything, just things like, tell me more about that, or, have you felt like this before? Things that will bring out more feelings and, help you to connect on a deeper level. Really, really important. Be certain that your partner cares. This is really difficult when you feel like your partner's attacking you. But the truth is, unless you're in a really nasty, destructive relationship, with someone who has some serious psychological issues, we all go into a relationship with the best intentions. And we're not trying to destroy it. We're not trying to beat our partner down. We're trying to get some issue resolved. We're trying to get some need met if it's not being met. And, if you can go and say, okay, well, I know that, this is something that I might not want to hear, but my partner is saying this because she cares about me and the relationship, then again, you really open yourself up to understanding and listening to what your partner's saying. 7, share your understanding. So again, a bit like the active listening, once you've heard what your partner has to say, then say, look, okay, this is how I understand what you said. It doesn't have to be like exact like in the active listening, it can just be an overview. So if you feel this way because of this, and you feel you'd like me to do this because that would make this happen. And your partner can say either yes or no, and so then you clarify. So if you haven't got it all, you haven't understood everything, then you ask your partner to clarify it again. Just say, look, I need to hear that again, so I make sure that I know exactly how you feel and what you need. So they're the tips. They're pretty simple when you just explain them. It sounds pretty easy. Of course, it's not that simple in reality. But if you can take these on board and practice them, your relationship can transform completely. You can go from something really, really difficult even destructive, and it can turn it into something really wonderful, where you can then move forward and grow together. But we all have to look at ourselves and say, how can we be better? How can I be better? What can I do to change this dynamic? Or if you're going into a new relationship, what can I do to make sure that these patterns don't develop? How can I incorporate these into our relationship? And they're pretty easy when you first start a relationship. You tend to ignore all the faults, right? But eventually things start coming up. So if you can start to utilise some of these techniques, then you give your relationship every chance to flourish and to continue to grow and become better over time, not worse, as most relationships end up being. So essentially that's it. How are we going? Yeah, we've sort of gone a little bit longer than planned, but that's okay, I always do. Do I have any questions, anything you'd like to share? Yeah, it's a good question. The question was, how often should you do active listening? Should you only do it when you have an issue, or should you practice it? My advice is, when you first start, do it as regularly as you can. You don't even have to do it on a problem. You can just do it on anything. Just talk about anything, utilising that technique just to get in the habit of it. You can talk about your work. You might be having some problems at work. Talk about that. You might not even be having problems. You might just want to discuss in a bit more detail, something that you haven't discussed. It's just about learning. But certainly if there is an issue, and if you've had some conflict, then that's a good time to do it. But set aside a time. Don't try to do it when you're in the conflict. That's a mistake a lot of people make, is trying to do that active listening when the emotions are high, and it won't work. So practice it until it becomes a natural way of dealing with things, and then you'll find that you won't need to actually do it in a structured way. It will become much more natural and easy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. If one person's committed to changing communication style, and the other one is going to be wanting to stay the way they are, then you're going to, I can see that you're going to find that you're not going to connect anyway. So two people need to be committed to the same.
Yeah, just saying that if one person's committed to change and the other one wants to stay how they are, then it's not going to work. And you at least half, it certainly makes it difficult. But often, even if just one person changes the way that they communicate, it can often just be a fairly small change. That can just change the whole dynamic, and that can open up the possibility of your partner changing as well. They're more likely to change if they think that you're not trying to change them. If they think you're trying to change them, they're not going to change. But if you just start acting a bit differently, doing things a bit differently, there's a possibility that your partner might come to the party. There's no guarantee. Certainly, if you're both committed to it, you've got every chance. If only one of you is, you do have a battle. But it's not like can be won, actually. And often your partner will get on board eventually.
Well, I say that when you change, the other person will either change and come towards you, or change, or that person will just so it's either come together or fall apart.
Yeah. Saying that if you change, your partner either will change with you, or they'll end up leaving. And this is true as well. And the truth is, if your partner continually won't see the problem, won't you know, agree to work through it. And you know, if you've tried and tried, then you know, you're going to be in a relationship that's not healthy and it's not fulfilling. And you know, you might need to put the ultimatum and say, you know, we need to see someone to work on this, otherwise I can't be in this relationship anymore. You know, the times change. Relationships are different now to what they used to be. You know, relationships are about love now. They never used to be. Relationships and marriage, you know, were all about convenience. And so you put up with that sort of stuff. You know, back in our grandparents' generation and before, you know, you just accepted that that was how it was. You know, you weren't happy about it, but that was it. But these days, things are different. We expect much more from our relationships, and we should. It's fantastic. You know, we are in a transition phase, which I think is absolutely brilliant, but we're still learning how to transition into these new relationships. You know, it's not easy. And you know, if your partner is determined to stay where they are and you need more, then you do have to consider whether you want to stay in the relationship. And sometimes, and often it is, and I know, you know, from my experience, that it's usually the man is very hesitant to get help. And I find that when a man comes to me for help, it's almost always because his wife says that she's leaving him. Women will generally come to me when they see signs of the problems, you know, and they can tell that things aren't getting better and they're just going to get worse. Men will wait until they're so bad, and often men don't really see the problems as clearly as women do. And you know, men will wait until the last possible moment before accepting help. And usually that is when their partner says, either something changes or I'm leaving. And so sometimes if you do that point, you say it, well, that can be, you know, the instigator for some change. That might be what, you know, your partner needs to get that kick up the bum to finally do something. But you know, if they're not prepared to, then you've got to ask yourself, is it worth staying in this relationship where I'm not having my needs met? And you know, the answer to that generally is probably no. You know, but often we stay in because of the kids or whatever, and you know, just put up with it. But you know, that's happening less and less now. You know, women aren't as reliant on men for financial support anymore. Women are making their own choices. You know, over 70% of all divorces now are initiated by women. You know, because women are saying, no, you know, I want more. You know, I don't just want to be in a soulless relationship. You know, I want to be connected. I want to be supported. I want to be loved. And you know, this is what all great relationships should be. And you know, if you're prepared to work at developing that and maintaining that, then you know, that's fantastic. Okay, well, I might finish up. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to come up to me and ask me, but it's 9 o'clock, so we might call it quits. I want to thank you all so much for coming and for being so attentive. It's been a fantastic audience, and next month we have a meetup on Tuesday the 19th of February. It's called Setting Energetic Boundaries. It's by a good friend of mine called Carmen Sinclair. She's just a beautiful person, incredible therapist. She's a holistic counsellor. She's really, really brilliant, lovely person, and she will have lots of really, really entertaining and informative information to share with you. So if you can make it along next month, it'd be great to see you all here. In the meantime, have a fantastic time, and if anyone wants to have a chat, grab a drink or whatever, I'm more than happy to do that. So thank you, and we'll see you all again soon.